The hosts and guests on Everything's Messy podcast are not licensed healthcare professionals. The discussions in our episodes are not personalized medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for medical guidance. Never delay seeking professional medical advice or emergency assistance because of our podcast. We encourage consulting with a healthcare professional before making any significant health changes. By listening to our podcast, you agree to the disclaimer. Thank you for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. Hey, welcome to Everything's Messy podcast, where we celebrate the beautiful but messy life experiences that most, if not all, people go through. Get ready to embark on an exciting journey through the raw and unfiltered stories of everyday people. Here, we dive into messy realities of life, from making messy mistakes to triumphs and everything in between. Are you sensing a theme? That's right, it's messy. But this just isn't about the mess. It's about finding strength and resilience in the midst of it all. We'll explore how health, fitness, and wellness play a crucial role in navigating life's twists and very messy turns. And we'll challenge conventional systems, because sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the greatest discoveries. Join us as we embrace the messy, beautiful, and endlessly fascinating stories. Each episode is a testament to the power of our messy journeys and the beauty that emerges from the mess. So grab your favorite beverage, coffee, sparkling water, whatever it may be, and prepare to be inspired. Are you ready? Let's get messy. Hey everybody, welcome back to Everything's Messy podcast. I am your messy host, Sarah. Okay, so for today, I'm so excited. I have two lovely, lovely women. I had the wonderful opportunity to be on their podcast, We Go Boldly, and they have graciously accepted to come on to my podcast, Everything's Messy. I have Tovah Kopan, a transformational coach, fellow podcaster of We Go Boldly, and was a practicing attorney, which I want to get into. And then I have Rielly Karsh, also was a practicing attorney, transformational coach, and also fellow podcaster. And I'm so excited that they're here. If you didn't have a chance, we had so much fun. We laughed a lot. So go back and listen to my episode with them. But welcome both. I'm so glad that you both are here.
Thanks. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, this is fun.
So obviously this is Everything's Messy. I always like to point out my background. My kids and I did this art, and it's just kind of sets the theme for the show. And, you know, one of the things that we're always talking about is finding your strength through your mess and turning it into something positive. So starting with you, Tovah, can you give us a little bit of your messy story?
Yeah, I'll try to make it not really long, which is really hard for me to do. But basically, I went to law school because I didn't know what else to do. And I was excited to be a lawyer at the time. But I also didn't know what that meant. And I did that for a couple years. I sort of followed kind of the traditional checklist. Like, I went to graduate school, I got married, I had kids, I got a practicing job, like practicing law rather. And then I realized that I really didn't like my job. And eventually I realized that I really didn't like my marriage and that it wasn't a healthy or good place to be. So that is, many
That's a lot of mess.
Yes, there's a lot of mess. So many, years practicing and 3 kids later, I ended up leaving practicing. My not podcasting job is working with legal technology. And so I still get to work with lawyers. And then, I don't know, after the 3rd kid, I ended up leaving my husband. And so we have been separated, divorced. I have been on my own with the boys for 6 years now.
Talk about going boldly.
Yeah. It was a lot. It didn't, it's interesting. I think things feel that you're bold when you look back at it, but usually when you're going through it, you just feel like you're just doing what you have to do to survive. And it's only later when you look back that you're like, oh, wow. Like, I know when Rielly tells her story, there are lots of bold moves that she's made, but at the time, I'm sure it just felt like I did it because I had to do it. And then, things are definitely better. Like, divorce was a good thing in my life. For a variety of reasons, and other things. It's all messy. I ended up stumbling upon breast cancer and went through that process. But it's been 2 years, and I'm on the other side. So we can talk about how the podcast got started, which is a fantastic story, in a little bit. But that's a mess. So now
Well, that's a mess, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I think I can sort of resonate when you say stumbled upon as that word, just that verbiage, and I commend you for being on the other side. So I think that's good news. So as I kick it over to Riley, and I've got questions for you too, but I just want to get Riley out there as well. What messiness do you bring to the table?
So much messiness. But maybe not the kind we're talking about today. So I also am a non-practicing attorney. I went to law school after I graduated from college with a degree in psychology, thought I was going to go and get my doctorate in psychology and be a therapist and all of those things. And I wound up working, it was a recession when I graduated. I wound up working for Child Protective Services on the border of Arizona and Mexico. And it was wild. And I was 22 and woefully ill prepared for that role. And one thing that did come out of it was I spent a lot of time in court, as one does in that position. And the attorney I was working with really pushed me to go to law school. And I had never, ever thought that that's something I would do. I'm very much a creative type. I like making things pretty. I like writing, all those things. But I'm also, smart and capable. And so I went off to law school and graduated with like a boatload of debt. I went to a big fancy law school and was like, oh, this will be great. I'll go and save the world. And I did in a lot of ways do that in my internships and things like that. Not save the world, but like I did the stuff that would sort of fuel my purpose, right? But then I had a ton of debt. And so then I went and worked on Wall Street and I burned out very quickly. It took about 5 years. And I worked in commercial mortgage-backed securities and finance and corporate finance with big banks and big, moving lots of money from point A to point B and back again. And I remember very distinctly thinking like, this could be the rest of my life and I could feel like soulless and like I have no purpose, or I could make a change. I was very, very privileged to be able to leave my job and take a year off and just sort of like figure out what I was doing with myself and get a lot of therapy, so that I could be happy again and even like contemplate what happiness looks like. And that is not a knock on lawyers. Like there are people out there, my husband included, he's a lawyer, who love being lawyers, and that's awesome. And I'm really excited for those people. I wasn't one of those people. And so I took that year off and then I started a business and I realized I really probably can't work for people anymore. Or not a lot. Like it has to be the very right person. And I work for someone now and she's amazing. But not in a big corporate environment like that. And so I had an entrepreneurial journey. I started some things. I was like, oh, I'll be an artist. I'll sell art. And then I rapidly realized that like, I don't like selling art. I like making art, but I don't like selling it to people because, I don't care what they think about my art. And that makes it hard to sell to them. So I eventually wound up having kids and I'm married and we moved out to the suburbs to a place I never thought I would live. I'm still not sure how I wound up here. And other than my parents are here and that's great, which is like a lifesaver for me. But I wound up out here in the suburbs of New Jersey and I have 2 kids and they're amazing. But I wound up getting involved in politics and running for council and getting involved in helping other people run for office and just being an advocate. I've been an advocate my whole life. I've been involved in grassroots advocacy since I was like, I don't know, 8. And so that was a natural next step. And as I was running for office, I had a baby. And so I was carrying him around while I was campaigning, and people said a lot of really...
that's easy because everybody does that.
Well, yeah, no, he was not an easy baby. My first one tricked me into having him. I don't regret it, but it was real hard. He went campaigning with me, and like the things that people would say were just gross. And so I wound up starting an organization with another woman called Moms Running, and we were training and advocating for more moms in politics and more moms being involved in things even beyond Board of Education stuff, which is where like we often get shoved, although it is important. So yeah, so I did that, and then I wound up meeting Tovah online. Like not on,
We met on Tinder, be honest.
I was going to say, I was going to think of a dating app. Like, that's how old I am. I was like,
okay,
wait,
now
what
the
are they
mess
called?
comes out. I see it. Okay.
That's not how old you are. You just never had to use one. I know all the names of the dating apps.
True.
That was the natural next question. Both seem from, not completely different backgrounds, but just different twists and turns that you kind of take. How did the two of you, cross each other's paths?
You want to go, Tovah, or you want me to?
Well, yeah, I'll start and then you can pick it up. We actually started crossing each other's paths before we realized it. So back in 2018, while Rielly was involved in Moms Running, and I think you were a member of your town council at that time, and you were active in the political community in New Jersey, launched a nonprofit called Lawyer Moms Action with a bunch of other lawyer moms in response to what was happening at the border in 2018. And so we ended up putting together quite a number of grassroots efforts. So when I look back, I have seen Rielly's email in my email box since 2018. But I think what really happened, also somehow we planned to go to an Alanis Morissette concert with like a bunch of people, but we also did not know each other then. There's a very amazing, thriving lawyer moms community online. And like by way of an example, on this past Saturday, I went to the beach and another lawyer mom posted in a divorced moms group that she wanted to go to the beach more with her kids, but it's really hard as the only adult. And I said, well, apparently we live close, we're going. And then she and I met up and had a great time. And later I told my mom, she's like, well, how long have you known her? And I was like, well, I don't know, years, but we like just met in person this afternoon. And that's just how the lawyer moms evolve. But then, and then I'll let you take it from here, Rielly. We were in a group and someone said, we want to do Mel Robbins, like best decade ever. And it would be great to do that with accountability partners. And we all know that 2020 certainly kicked off the best decade of our lives. Clearly over the last 5 years, that's apparent. And so we decided to be accountability partners. And when you don't think you're ever going to meet someone in real life or ever see them again, you end up kind of sharing all your like hopes and dreams and deep dark secrets, because you might as well. It's not like Rielly and I are going to spend many Thanksgivings together, which we have. And so, so we got to know each other, and it kind of both came out at the time that we both wanted to do podcasts or had these different ideas. And then Rielly, one day, I'll let you take it from here, reached out.
Oh, yeah. As I like to make decisions, I was in my backyard, actually. COVID, so I'm in the backyard with the kids trying to like keep them from going feral. And I was like, yeah, we should just start a podcast. So I texted Tovah and asked her if she wanted to start a podcast. And
there was no like, hi, hello, how are you doing? No. How's April
Straight
going
to the
for
point.
you? It was like, do you want to do a podcast?
I mean, I find that
who has time for the other fluff, right?
It gets in the way. Like, I just want an answer. Like, are we doing this? Let's do it. Cool. I am also notoriously bad at small talk. Like, it's painful.
I would so agree with that.
Nobody likes it when I try to make like pleasant day conversation, because I just get weird. Like, I get uncomfortable and make weird faces and say stupid things. So that's how we started the podcast, and it evolved from there. And now we have a whole company and a podcast, and we write and we do all kinds of stuff together. And it's been an amazing, messy, wonderful journey, I think.
I love that. I love that so much. So I just want to back up for a little bit. When we're talking specifically about, the law career, is it, because I hear this a lot, especially people that seem to come out of corporate world. They gave it their all. They thought this is where they were supposed to be. And then right around the 5-year, maybe 7-year mark, they're like, I have nothing to show for it other than, yes, I've done all this work, but I think one of you had used the word soulless, and they wake up and they're like, well, now what? Is that kind of what the two of you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I think this gets put on lawyers a lot, and maybe it happens to lawyers more because we tend to have to work extraordinary amounts of hours. But I think this happens to all people, right? Like, and Tova and I were just talking about this somewhere. I forget where we were, Tova, but about you kind of go down the path and you think like this is the direction and you keep trying and you're like, oh, I'm going to get there and it's going to be great. And then you get there and you're like, oh no, like I don't even want to be at this table. Like I worked so hard to get to it and now I'm here and I'm really not enjoying it.
I want to flip the table over.
Yeah, like it's just a miserable place to be for you. Maybe other people are loving it and that's fine. And I think it happens across all walks of life, right? Like it could happen in any trade, any profession, any like anything you're doing. You could sit there, wake up one day and be like, I have zero passion for this. And that I think it comes out with lawyers more because we burn out because the workload is the expectations, especially in a place like New York or North Jersey or like, you know, big cities, like the expectation of the amount of hours you're going to put in are stupid and unhealthy, I think.
I also think, and this is something that, I have a 9, 11, and 13-year-old, and I've been talking to them since they've been getting the question of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Which is just like a horrible question. But I never thought about how I wanted to spend my day. And I cannot spend my day in a desk, in an office. And my parents both have jobs that they don't do that. I could not do that. And I didn't know that. So it wasn't until I left my job where I was doing that and I talked to other people and it was like, oh, you weren't miserable doing that. Like I have friends who finished, when COVID allowed them to go back and we're in New Jersey, so a lot of things got shut down. And when they were able to go back to work, they were like, yeah, I can't wait to get back to the office. And I was like, really? Really? That's like a thing? So I've been working remotely since well before COVID. And I think that there's a possibility that there are legal jobs out there that I would have really liked. And I just never found them, or I actually found them, but they weren't hiring. Every time I tried to apply to be a law guardian in our state, they weren't hiring because of whatever fun economic crash that was taking place at that time. And so I think that that's an important question, though, like for anybody, like, how do you want to spend your day? Do you want to go and do the same thing every day? Because guess what? There are people who genuinely do love that. Like they want their mug that they always use. They just want the same thing. Or, do you need to be moving? Do you need to be up and around? Does it need to be different every day to be interesting? And I never gave any of that any thought. So I just got a job that paid the bills.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah, I think because you had mentioned, that's such a dumb question for kids. And I think it really is. And it sort of makes them want to have to fit into a certain box. And I think we grow up thinking now we have to fit in this box. And so all of us try to make ourselves fit in this box based on what we thought we should do when we grow older. And it's interesting. We recently went to we homeschool. So we recently went to a homeschool convention, and one of the ladies who was speaking, she suggested instead of asking, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? Say something like, how do you want to help the world when you grow up? And that like opens up their brains, their minds to like, well, how do you want to contribute? What do you want to help with? And then the answers all change. So it starts to become more aligned with what they want to do than what they think the box needs to be, and kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing if as we raise children, we just don't even talk about what they're going to do
That
in 20
too.
years.
Remove the pressure completely.
What do you like right now? What would you like to explore today? Right. And be more open to the exploration of the world around them, and stop
100%.
putting like a salary on it. Right. Or like this is how you're going to pay the bills when you're 30, because it's miserable enough. Right. Like we get there, like childhood is so short
and so precious.
And I mean, yeah, in some ways it's awful, right? Like middle school, like middle school is a nightmare.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I think, and I think this applies across the board of every generation. Like we forget to enjoy the moment we're in, right?
Agreed.
And so it's our job as like guardians of little humans to say, no, I'm not going to push this into the future. And it's super hard because I'm like I'm super type A and uptight, and I want them to be like the best at everything all the time, and it's like very hard not to pressure them. But I also don't want them to have that experience. Like, I don't want them to feel like, oh, I've got to be the best for it to be worth doing. Like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You just have to try it and
Yeah.
see if you like it.
I think it's also especially hard for kids who are like you and I, Riley, where we're like overthinkers. And I, so our elementary school goes to fourth grade. And during the fourth grade process, one of the things is putting together a yearbook. And part of the yearbook is asking kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, or something like that. I try to push to change the question, but I forget what we say. And there are some kids that are just like a baseball player, or like, I want to be a chef. And it's great because it's like whatever they're currently passionate about, that's the thing they want to do. It's a super simple answer for them. And then there's other kids that are like, it's so hard. And I was like, okay. And I would have to walk them through it. And I would say, this is what you want to do, what you can envision yourself doing at this exact moment. And it can change 2 minutes from now. I just need to take a picture of you holding a blackboard with something on it.
Yeah.
Like, this is a snapshot in time. It can change immediately. It's just what you are thinking right at this moment. Because I was like, you're not locking in, man. It's a fourth grade yearbook. Like, but there's so much pressure.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of pressure. I know before and we started homeschooling before COVID, but one of the reasons, well, there were several, but one of the reasons why we started to homeschool is I remember my oldest, she had a complete meltdown in fourth grade because it's like she had to have everything figured out. And she was very already anxious, driven anyway, kind of going in that direction. And it just added all of this pressure. And I remember a lot of either they didn't take it seriously or that's what was important to them at the time, but it seemed like the whole class just wanted to be YouTubers. And I'm like, I was asking the teacher to be like, well, what can we break that down? What does that mean for them? Because I'm not sure they even understand what they're saying. They all want to be Mr. Beast or something like that. And it's like that, does it mean they want to start their own company? Do they want to be a philanthropist? What does that look like? And she didn't really, I know she didn't have time, and that's part of the problem too. Teachers are just given so much to do, but it was just like, I don't even think at fourth grade you should know, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to have that answer.
You should have dreams. You should have like hopes and dreams and thoughts about unicorns. Like, there's no reason to be like, I'm going to be an accountant.
Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, there are people who have that happen, right? Like, I know several who are like, they wanted to be a doctor when they were 4. They're a doctor now at 40. Like, great. Yeah. But like, I don't know. It's just, there's so much to feel pressure over, and that shouldn't be one of them.
Right. So as you kind of shift, both of you, as you kind of shift out of that corporate world and you guys meet, which sounds like it was meant to be, on Tinder, we can get to that later, but no. So as you guys meet and come into this sort of new space, right? And so you want the answer, do you want to do this podcast or not? What then becomes next? You just sit down with a mic and say, let's go. How do you find your direction?
So I think I texted back right away, like, yes. And then like you texted, do you want to do a podcast? And I said, yes. And then we hopped on the phone, and initially, so we had to figure out what the podcast was going to be about. And initially it was envisioned to have a conversation about how the pandemic specifically was affecting women and women in the workplace and just women in the world. And we realized very, very quickly that was needed to be a much bigger question. Like, there was a much bigger issue at hand. Like, there was a reason that it was affecting women so disproportionately and in so many different ways than men, right? Like, not at the least being that like suddenly all the childcare and schooling and everything immediately fell on women as just like the default in most households, obviously not everywhere. And so we started expanding what it was going to be about, and how did women, I don't want to say that women got themselves in this situation, but like how women were kind of pushed by society into this position. And then at one point, I know either I said to you, Riley, or you said to me, like, we don't want it to just be a podcast. Like, we want to do more. Is there coaching opportunities? Is there speaking? Like, what else? And fortunately, while we are very similar and like very different all at the same time, but for the big things, we've almost always been like very much in alignment. And it was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's have a company and that. And then That was in April, and I think we launched the first episode February of the following year.
Wow.
So it took a while of fleshing everything out and building the website and doing all this stuff, but I think that's basically what happened.
That's neat. I think so important too, especially for that time that you were asking those questions and getting people to respond. And you were saying it turned into something bigger. So I'm assuming it turned into maybe more women sort of looking inwardly and kind of, asking those tough questions and maybe having that accountability to talk of, okay, now what do I do next? And so is that what the transformational coaching does? Or you kind of talk a little bit about?
Yeah, so we realized very, very quickly and then talked about for a very long time, why is it that, particularly in this country, but globally in a lot of ways, why is it that women are the default caretaker? Why is it that women get paid less? Why is it that women are having to leave the workforce in this environment, right? Why? And really, where we wound up after lengthy discussions and thoughts and our own therapy, I think, was that, we are not taught or allowed to listen to our own inner voice, right? Like we are often socialized away from that. We're socialized to be pleasant and smile and help. And there's nothing wrong with being pleasant and smiling and helping, but there is something wrong with that masking who you are as a human being on the inside, right? And if it's never allowing you to let that person out and let that person make decisions and be in the driver's seat of your life, then really you're just a puppet of whatever culture tells you to be. And I think especially our generation, we grew up with that expectation, right? Like I remember movies in the 90s and they were like not great for women, right? I'm sure Tovah can name all of them. I can't name anything because my short-term memory, actually all of my memory is terrible at this point. But like our role models were terrible in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so we really want to bring to women in our courses, in our weekly circle, in the things that we do, an opportunity to hear yourself and to understand what are my core values? What do I care about? What am I passionate about? What am I not setting boundaries around, right? Like, why am I afraid to set boundaries? I love setting boundaries and I love when people set boundaries. I think it's so healthy and so good for us. And that's really what we talk about, like, in a variety of different ways.
Sure.
Like, we kind of weave around it, but those are the core things that we focus on, I think.
Yeah, and I, on the other hand, had never heard of a boundary when I met Rielly. In hindsight, I was attracted to people who were good boundary setters, not romantically attracted.
No, friendships.
Friendships. I have a very good friendship picker. I have an almost 100% success rate with friendships. Great. I'm just really good at picking amazing people to surround myself with. I feel very lucky. Romantically, I am less good at picking people out. But yeah, I didn't know what a boundary was. And I did realize, though, that I did somehow inside know what one was because I picked people who were good at setting boundaries. I just didn't know how to set one myself.
And that conversation in and of itself, I think, is really hard because that had to become a practice for me. I don't know that I never did it or I didn't know how, but I was very unaware of what it actually, like the power behind it. And then actually setting that into motion and practice and using that in everyday language and life and sort of being like, oh, I can do, that's okay that I do this, and being okay with it with myself. You had said, our role models weren't that great. And we had a lot of, bad information and things like that. And I remember thinking one of the things that I really struggled with is I felt like I always had to make sure everyone around me was comfortable and that I wasn't making anybody uncomfortable. And I don't even know where that came from. It was just sort of innately in me. But then as you grow up and whatever, and you're like, where did that come from? And you can't answer that question. That's so frustrating.
I think when you can't answer the where does it come from question, the answer is often culture, right? Like it comes from the culture around us and the people around us. And even like even if we have parents who had the best intentions, they also were in the culture of that like thought process, right? So like I was walking with my mom this morning and she was telling me about a boundary she set. And I was like, woo, that's a great boundary. And she's like, yeah, I feel terrible about it. And I'm like, no. You did it.
Not meant to be terrible.
Right. And she's like, no, I know. She obviously understands that, but like, it's still hard, right? Like she's been working on this for 40 years and it's still hard. So I think, giving ourselves a little grace is not the worst idea either, right? Because it is a challenge. It's hard to recognize like, whatever you're feeling, name it, and then allow it to like move on. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, to get to the place where you're even aware of it.
Yeah.
For so long, I feel like I was just unaware and almost to my own detriment, but really not even realizing.
Well, and I want to highlight one thing too, because I always find this conversation challenging because I am a confrontational person and I have been since I was born. And so boundaries have never been hard for me in the sense of setting them. It's just when Tova and I first started talking about it, I was like, so my boundaries are like castle walls. Like they're not healthy in that sense, right? Like, because they become so rigid and so high that like no one's getting over that wall. And so there are different ways to look at it, right? Like if you have, quote, bad boundaries, which I don't even like saying that because it seems like a moral judgment, but like if you are not great at setting boundaries in the sense that you don't set them, you can work on it. But also if you set boundaries that are totally unreasonable and keep everyone away from you for unhealthy reasons, right? Like you can work on that. Like it comes in both sides.
And we've spent, as you can imagine, a lot of time talking about this, both like in the theoretical sense in the podcast, but then also in our relationship. And because, I am one of those, we were both people who pick up other people's moods. It's probably a trauma response to make sure we stay safe. And so if one of us is having a bad day, totally unrelated to the other, we are very quickly to be like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? What is upset? But I don't know that, Riley, that you felt that, other than maybe you felt, well, Tova's being awful today. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But like what we have learned, the point of what I'm saying is what we have learned is we not only will ask the other person, are you okay today? But we have also learned to say, I am not okay today. I am, and if I come across this way when we're talking, or if I come across this way when we're interviewing somebody, it is not you. It is me. This is what I'm going through. Or if we don't have time, like I'm going through something, I will tell you after the show. Like just so that because we know that the other person is highly attuned to that. And that is where I think when we've talked about it in the theoretical sense that like I picture boundaries as like, fences make good neighbors and boundaries make good relationships. Like I have the most spectacular next door neighbors and they have a lovely fence and they're like, oh, you guys are great. Your kids are great. I'm like, yeah, because you have a fence and the ball doesn't go in your yard all the time. It goes in your yard quite a bit because it goes over the fence, but it doesn't go in your yard all the time. And I was like, that's why you don't hate us, because we would be in your yard all the time. And I think that, so it is a positive for all of us to have those boundaries, but also the more you kind of flex that muscle. And unfortunately, in my instance, I was kind of both becoming aware of boundaries and pushed to actually use them right at the same time because it was during COVID. And it was when I would have to tell, like, so my family's in Pennsylvania, I'm in New Jersey. We were in a part of New Jersey, even more affected than Riley's area. Like there were weeks, months that we did not hear cars on the street except for ambulances. It was very, very bad where we were. And then I have on the phone my mom, who's just so desperate to see her grandkids and is like, maybe in 2 weeks if your mom lets us. And it's like, no, that is not going to work. And so I was forced to learn how to set boundaries, like as I was learning what a boundary was. And it was kind of good because now I've learned to set them, in less traumatic pandemic sort of ways. But it was a wild ride there for a while.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely wouldn't speak for all women, but I think a lot of us, especially in the Gen X space where I'm at, they don't have that. We are fighters, we're scrappy, we're latchkey kids, we can do all of the things, but then there's still that piece of like, we, don't want to make you uncomfortable and put on that smile and be a good girl and make sure I'm doing all the things. Like that's hard to balance because, like I said, one minute you're ready to fight and the next minute you're like, okay, not, I can't do that. And then enter perimenopause and then all bets are off.
It's a whole other world. If you people thought I was confrontational before, welcome. I see, and it's funny because these are ways in which Tova and I are very different. Like I never tried to make people comfortable as a kid, and I, in fact, probably tried to make people uncomfortable because I was oppositional in that way, which is fun to raise my son who is just like me. So fun. But I never had that urge to people please or to make everyone feel okay with what was happening around
Which
them.
is also a trauma response.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. I had the urge to be silent and calm. And, or to like ratchet it up. Let's make it exciting for everybody. So I only say that because I want, like, if people are listening, people are listening, but whoever's out there, if if this is something, if you don't have the people pleasing response, but you have the other, like, dramatic other end of the spectrum, just it's a flag. It's not necessarily a red flag, but it's a flag to think about and like, okay, what is this doing for me now? I mean, and I'm still confrontational. I'm still not like really willing to people please in any meaningful way, but I work on it.
We can do. That's all we can do. And I think I don't think you should use confrontation in a bad connotation towards yourself. I feel like we all kind of need a little more of that in the right, respectful way, right? I can get my point across without attacking you or being, salacious, like just be to the point and direct, but I don't have to be, mean, I guess, for lack of better words.
Yeah, that's what I've learned as I've aged, I think, is that I can get my point across without like destroying the other person, right?
Which
like
you could do.
Which I've done in the past and has happened to me. Like I'm I'm not Superwoman, but.
And as Riley said, I'm on the other side of things where I not anymore, but as much, but for a very long time, I just, if I were well behaved and was well listened and good, I would not cause any trouble. And there was a moment that was kind of this amazing conversation with my son, where I am not raising a people pleaser, which is very stressful for me. But is great. I'm very happy for him, but also like you could just listen to like any direction ever and like not make me so stressed. But he had gotten a detention for whatever, partly because his middle school is like detention happy, and he told me he was talking about another girl who just got a detention. He's like, it's like she's never gotten a detention before, and I was like, me. I never got a detention, not once in my whole career of educating. How did I ever even get close to getting a detention? And he's like, well, yeah, you're not like that now though. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're like a troublemaker. Like you cause trouble. And like, he didn't know like John Lewis about causing good trouble or anything, but he was just like, you're a troublemaker. Like you cause trouble when you need to be. And
that's like, a compliment. I think he was trying to compliment you.
And I was like, oh, yes, I am. And I'm still working on being a good advocate for myself. But if other people are involved, not just my kids, like anybody, like I can cause trouble and I can be an advocate. And I'm not worried about pleasing people if it means being nice. And so, yeah, I really loved that compliment from him and was really proud of it. Yeah.
No, I love that.
But also maybe just get less detentions too. Just,
maybe just listen to the teacher just once.
Like just once in a while. Could you? It's very stressful.
So out of this podcast, this movement comes of this, the Power Moms Network, and just talk a little bit about that. Or is it recruiting other moms? Is it, doing advocacy? Is it coaching? What is that about?
So we were at the Mom 2.0 conference. I don't know if you've gone. It's fantastic. We highly recommend it. It's a very uplifting, powerful community experience. And we met a woman in where were we, Tova? Were we in a podcasting panel?
We were at the last panel of the day of the whole thing, and it was or second to last, and it was a podcasting panel. And afterwards, one of the people on the panel had said, like, if you want to come up and we'll do a short little, like, thing that I'll put on my social media. And so we went up and we met this woman who has had a lot of experience producing podcasts and talking about podcasts and creating podcasts. And we did a little, like, 60-second spiel about what we did. And she loved what we were talking about and how we described our own podcast. And that led to kind of the beginning of a friendship and business relationship. Right?
Yeah. So she put together the Power Moms Network, and she's, like Tova said, she has a ton of podcasting experience and networking experience and things of that nature. And so she put together the Power Moms Network. Power Moms Network is a community. It's also a network of podcasts who provide, I don't know, empowerment to moms, like that would in some way meaningfully support moms' personal growth, right? And so she has developed this network, and we are fortunate enough to be a part of it. And yeah, moms can, like, well, anyone who identifies as a mom can go and join the community, and there are all kinds of resources available and different shows you can listen to, and it's growing, and I think she's got more things coming up in the future that she's working on, and I believe she's still looking for podcasts, and she's looking for sponsors. So if there's people out there that are mom centric that need to advertise in some way, she's open to that as well.
And so just a great, wonderful community of just supporting other moms. And is there, like, resources? Are you giving information for different things?
Go ahead, Toa.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, like, and each podcast is, so we have our podcast, and we don't just talk to moms. We are moms, so that is kind of woven into everything that we talk about. But there's, like, someone else on the podcast or who has her own podcast talking about finances and really talks about, like, especially women, but also she's a mom. And I think there's something that's really important to note. Like, I once applied for a job at a law firm. It was a doozy of an interview and a law firm. There was somebody in a French maid's costume, that uniform. It was uniform. It was in the costume that, like, brought me my coffee. It was a trip. But one thing they said was that they had an associate who stayed with them for 5 years. But then she went home to Buffalo because that's where she's from when she decided to have a family. And they were concerned because I was originally from Pennsylvania, and would I want to leave New Jersey and go back to Pennsylvania when I inevitably decided to start a family? Now, I have been in New Jersey since 2007, and also it's none of your business.
Right.
And also, that's wild. 5 years is a return on your investment, just to be clear. Like, it usually takes 1 or 2 years where associates are costing more money than they're actually, like, bringing in. But then there's, like, 5 years, you got a return on your investment, my friend.
Yeah. I don't even think that's legal, actually. I don't think they can ask you that.
No, it's definitely not.
Definitely not. But the point of
from
that
the two
story
attorneys
is,
that would know.
Yeah. The point of that story is, I think, especially for women our age, we saw, like, Baby Boom is one of my favorite movies. All-time favorite movies. And if it's Diane Keaton, if you don't know, it's an 80s movie.
Yeah.
Right? Diane Keaton, she, like, stumbles upon a child that she has to raise now, and she's, like, wearing the big
giant shoulder pads,
and she's, like, super awesome corporate lady, and then she may be a lawyer, actually, and doing, like, mergers and whatnot in the big city. And then she stumbles upon this child, and she ends up, like, making applesauce and falling in love with a vet. I mean, it's just like, I would have moved to Vermont right now. But anyway, like, every time I think about it, I'm like, why am I not in Vermont making applesauce? But one thing it taught you was that you can't be a mom and be on the corporate. Now, actually, at the very end, you learn you can, you write your own script, but whatever. But I still think really the main message is don't tell people you're a mom if you want to be taken seriously. And so part of, I think, just having the Power Moms Network, having Mom 2.0 is understanding that, like, no, we're not hiding being a mom. We're celebrating being moms. We're learning from other moms. Like, it is a huge part of who we are. I don't think it makes me any more a woman than anybody else who chooses not to be a mom, but it is not an insignificant part of who we are. And we don't have to pretend it's not anymore. But
Yeah,
now I kind of want to watch Baby Boom.
But it's like one of the reasons when I ran for office, I recognized that there's a greater need for moms having support in order to run for office, because the kinds of comments as a mom that I got in a small community where I'm like just trying to help people, right? Were so disgusting and gross and like inappropriate. And I as a person who is like, okay, don't like me, could handle that. And I can only imagine what it would be like for a person who is like not prepared for those kinds of comments to come at you, right? Because it's really,
or an empath or somebody that's just a little more fragile. Like, would be...
like it's really kind of devastating to hear. I mean, you know, if it was somebody that I cared about who said it to me, obviously I would feel very different, but like random people.
But I think that's also a practice, learning to not care what other people think about you, because that's sort of woven in there as well. So that's definitely something else we have to practice. And I was just going to make a quick comment. You know, I think one of the things as moms is we do lean on each other because, you know, depending on what stage of the mom era that we're in, we sort of find, you know, strength in numbers, as far as I'm not the only one, you know, had projectile crap all over me at midnight. I'm not the only one. Like, just depending on what phase you're in, I think we can laugh about it and talk about it. And so there's real community in that. And I think, you know, having a network that shows that, and definitely bringing in all of those other extra pieces of, you know, working and things like that. But I think the voice is getting stronger. I just hope it goes in the right direction of, you know, what do they always say? You have these giant think tanks in Washington that are trying to figure out these big problems and all this stuff. And it always says at the bottom, just put a group of moms together. They'll figure that shit out really quick.
Right. Because moms don't have time to mess around. Like, we have things we have to get done, right? And decisions have to be made. And also, like, it's not all about our ego. I mean, sometimes it is. Like, I have an ego. I'm not going to pretend I don't. But it's not solely about ego, right? It's like, it's not a vanity project. We didn't have kids and like a home and a career for vanity. We needed it, and we did it.
Right.
And like, moms have unbelievable skills that people don't recognize. I will also say that when like, not to make it political, but when moms run for office, and we were just talking about this too, Tova, but moms run for office, and women in general, for a specific reason. They see a problem and they're like, I need to fix that.
I need to fix it.
They run for office to fix it. Whereas men are like, I guess I'll run for office. It's a Tuesday, right? Like, they don't know what they're doing most of the time. They're like, I'm just going to run. I don't know. Somebody asked me to. Bob down the street was like, you should go run for office. I was like, okay. And it's not the same. The outcomes aren't the same. Statistics bear out that, you know, women are far more collaborative when put in office. They're more likely to work across the aisle. They're more likely to, I mean, not all of them, because ew, but they're more likely to, you know, accomplish the task they set out to do.
That's not to say that men don't have passions. A lot of men do, but it's in a different way, I think. Whereas we're looking, I think, I don't want to say the bigger picture, but we can see all of kind of like the tiny little intricate pieces that have to be woven in and fit. And we're thinking about, you know, Jenny down the street, you know, that I saw 2 years ago, and how she's going to fit in the problem, versus more of like the strategic way, I guess, is a good way to put that.
Well, and we see it, I mean, locally in our town has like the best pool. I love our town pool. It's fantastic. But our 2 women council members had to fight to get it to open earlier for the splash pad and the baby pool. And it was like, because if you don't open till noon, at that point it's lunchtime and people have to go home to put their kids down for naps. So what's the point if you're not open at 10 or 11 for them? We would have a whole day of life before my kids would end up going to the pool. Like it was
Yeah.
wild. And they had to fight for that. And then, in New Jersey, we have a governor, a woman running for governor. And there are lots of pros and cons. And this is not to say anything like political, but one of the knocks against her, I think, that often happens is that she does reach across the aisle. She is willing to be more moderate just to get something done. And it drives people crazy. And maybe rightfully so. Like there are valid complaints against her for sure. But between that and her military background, she's so pragmatic. It's like between being a mom and being a naval officer. It's like, no, like let's just get stuff done. Like who do I have to partner with to get something done? And I think that is, we are all, if you're a parent, and I would think you have experiences, whether you're like homeschooling or not, where it's like, I have to work with people who I would not otherwise be interacting with.
Right.
Because I don't choose their personality type and
Absolutely.
I'm not having a great time here.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
it doesn't matter, right? Because we just have to get something done.
Yep. Well, and even if it's just the satisfaction, like I love the satisfaction of just checking that box, even if it's just to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Check
Can
that
we
box.
say
It's going to get done.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I love all of that. And I think there's such a place, I think a need for it. And I think, I hope you guys grow and it just keeps getting bigger and you have this, huge movement, because I just think it's so important. And I really, the whole story of how you, came to meet and kind of this whole thing was, brought into fruition, I think is just, it's messy, but it's great. And again, different backgrounds, but still mess nonetheless on each side of just, and it's of course different ebb and flow and whatever, but it's very, we are all kind of aligned in that way. And even if we're just specifically talking about what we did or what happened to us going through COVID, I think now, and I've said this so many times, we're all looking for general, real, genuine connection, right? We missed something. We either woke up because we were forced to be, kind of looking at ourselves, and we all realized we're missing this genuine connection. Because Rielly, I'm a lot like you. I can't do small talk. I don't have time for fake, friendships or pleasantries. It's, if I'm going to invest, there has to be a reason for, I'm going to, give you my time. Otherwise I'd rather be home with the kids. Like that's what I want to do. And so I think when we get to that point and we're like, I'm desperately wanting a genuine raw connection with somebody because I want to get to those deeper levels, I think this is a good way to at least start that and get in a community and be involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know. Genuine connection is something that I think people really struggle with because it requires you to be vulnerable, right?
Yes.
And it requires you to be willing to be open to take a risk with another human being. And I think, in the times we're living in, that can be very frightening. It always could, right? Like forever.
Right.
But especially now because we've all been through so much in the last 20, 30 years. We've all experienced things that we never anticipated experiencing, and it changes you. And I think acknowledging that in ourselves and being willing to take a hard look at how you're moving through the world and what are you bringing out of yourself and what are you sharing with the world. It's just kind of essential for figuring out how to live a life that is meaningful and happy-ish. I hate using the word happy because it's not consistent, but more happy than less. I don't know.
Well, and choosing that joy, choosing whatever that is that lights you up, and knowing that you have the permission to do that. I think, again, I, had to hear that there was permission to do that.
Yeah.
It's, so it's one of the reasons in our women's circle that we end every circle where we share a struggle and a celebration. Because no matter how messy things get, it feels a little lighter if you are sharing a struggle with everybody else, right? And even if there's nothing anybody can do to fix it, right? And I think that's something that women realize better than men in general, is that sharing is caring, and sharing allows you to make your load feel lighter, even if you're not looking for someone to fix it for you.
Sure.
And so we share the struggles, we share the mess. And then also, though, there is something to celebrate every single week. Like, no matter, I can think about some of the worst days of my life. the day after I left my husband, and it was one of the hardest days of my life. And I had to do a bunch of stuff that day, and it's a doozy of a story. It requires its own like 3-part podcast. But
Okay.
we were at a coffee shop I was at a coffee shop with my mom, just kind of like regrouping after getting the kids to school. And the coffee shop owner had like extra or too much coffee cake, or he just saw that I was like in the depths of despair. I'm not sure which. And he gave me a free piece of coffee cake. Like, that does not fix the day, but I remember
No.
that,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Because kindness can go so far.
so far. And so I think recognizing that you can celebrate something no matter how awful things are is also a way to
Coffee cake.
form connection. Yeah. I mean, it was just a moment of kindness, and he had no idea what I was in the middle of, but I needed it.
Yeah.
I needed it.
Well, who
And
doesn't need coffee cake? But I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Even if we all walk away trauma bonded over the struggles that we shared.
Right.
hey, there are worse
gonna
things to be. The trauma makes us funny. So
That is true. That is true. This has been just so, I love this so much. So if people do want to work with a transformational coach and get to know you guys better, where do they go?
You can find us on our website. It's goboldlyinitiative.com. You can find us on all the social media, really, at Go Boldly Together. You could email us. It's hello@goboldlyinitiative.com. What am I forgetting, Tova? Oh, you can find us on YouTube. And anywhere you
YouTube,
listen to
LinkedIn,
podcasts.
Yeah,
Instagram.
and I do recommend go listen to their podcast because it is a great podcast. So
Thank you.
both so very much for being on Everything's Messy. I truly am just so grateful that you had the time to come on, and this was such a great episode. So you guys will be my 99th episode. So I'm very
That's
excited.
exciting. I love it.
So-
That's a good number.
Yes. So thank you again very much. And I wish you all the luck and all of the best. And I hope that it keeps growing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. Whew, if you made it this far, give yourself a gold star or at least a nap. Honestly, if you showed up today and you were listening, you've already crushed it. I'm so grateful for you listening. If anything hit home, share it, tag me, write it on a sticky note. I don't care. Just don't keep all of this messy goodness to yourself. You can find me on Instagram at Everything's Messy Wellness or over at my website, everythingsmessywellness.com, where I've got resources, coaching, and probably a new rant about blood sugar or something that's just nonsense. It's all waiting for you. Check out my YouTube channel. I've got all of my podcast episodes up there. And I'm on X at Everything's Mess. Or if you just want to send me an email, Sarah at everythingsmessywellness.com. Look, until next time, hydrate, take no crap, and as always, keep it messy.